Lily Johnson was not one to shy away from the world around her. At 16, she had already developed a keen sense of empathy, a trait that often made her the go-to person among her friends for advice and comfort. Her small town, nestled among rolling hills and vast fields, was a place where everyone knew each other. The sun was setting, casting a warm, golden light over the streets as she took her usual evening stroll, hoping to clear her mind after a long day of classes. As she walked along the familiar path, the gentle rustling of leaves accompanied her thoughts. She contemplated the upcoming school dance, the nervous excitement of her friends, and her own reluctance to attend. Just as she turned the corner onto an alley she often passed but rarely ventured into, a faint sound caught her attention. A soft, desperate cry. Curiosity piqued, she stopped in her tracks, her heart beginning to race. The sound was unmistakable. A baby crying. What could a baby be doing here? She whispered to herself, her instincts driving her forward. She approached the alley cautiously, her senses heightened. The cries grew louder, echoing off the brick walls, laced with urgency. "Hello?" she called softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is anyone there?" As she peered deeper into the shadows of the alley, her heart sank. There, nestled among the refuse and discarded items, was a trash bin, its lid slightly ajar, as if inviting her to look inside. Lily hesitated for a moment, torn between fear and the overwhelming need to help. Taking a deep breath, she stepped closer, her stomach churning with a mix of dread and determination. "Please be okay," she muttered under her breath, inching toward the bin. As she lifted the lid, the sight that met her eyes was one she would never forget. There, wrapped in a filthy blanket, was a newborn baby, its tiny body shivering in the cool evening air. The blanket was stained and tattered, but the baby's face was still the picture of innocence. Lily felt her heart shatter as she took in the sight. "Oh no, no, no," she gasped, her hands trembling as she reached in to scoop the child up. The baby let out another wail, a sound that pierced her soul. "Hey, little one," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion as she cradled the infant against her chest. The warmth of the baby's tiny body against her skin was a stark contrast to the cold realization of what had just happened. "I'm going to help you," she vowed, her mind racing with thoughts of what to do next. Lily glanced around the alley, a sense of urgency flooding her veins. There was no time to waste. She quickly removed her jacket and wrapped the baby in it, trying to shield the child from the chill of the night. "Hold on," she murmured, adjusting her grip as she began to sprint toward the nearest hospital, her heart pounding in rhythm with the frantic cries of the infant. The streets blurred past her as she ran, her sneakers pounding against the pavement. Each step felt like a declaration of defiance against the world that had allowed this to happen. Why would anyone do such a thing, she thought, tears threatening to spill from her eyes. How could anyone abandon a baby? The questions swirled in her mind, but she pushed them aside, focusing on the task at hand. As she approached the hospital, the familiar sight of the bright lights and the bustling entrance filled her with a mix of hope and fear. "Please, let them be able to help," she thought desperately. Bursting through the emergency room doors, she was met with a flurry of activity. Nurses and doctors moved with purpose, attending to patients, their faces etched with concentration. "Help! Someone please!" Lily shouted, her voice breaking as she clutched the baby tightly. The room fell silent for a moment as heads turned toward her, shock evident on their faces. "Call for a pediatric team," a nurse shouted, springing into action as she rushed toward Lily. "What happened?" I found her in a trash bin," Lily gasped, her voice trembling as she met the nurse's concerned gaze. "She's just a baby. Please, she needs help." The nurse quickly took the baby from Lily's arms, her movements practiced yet gentle as she assessed the situation. "You did the right thing by bringing her here. We're going to take care of her," she assured, her tone firm and comforting. Lily watched helplessly as they whisked the baby away, her heart aching with a mix of relief and anxiety. A moment later, a tall figure appeared, his expression serious and focused. Dr. Thomas, a seasoned physician known for his expertise and no-nonsense demeanor, approached the scene with an air of authority. "What do we have here?" he asked, kneeling down to look at the infant being examined by the nurses. His eyes widened in horror as he took in the baby's condition. "How did this happen?" I found her in the alley," Lily stammered, her voice trembling as she struggled to find the words. She was abandoned. I couldn't just leave her there. Dr. Thomas turned his gaze to her, his expression softening slightly. You did the right thing by bringing her in, but we need to act fast. She's in critical condition. Lily felt a lump form in her throat as she watched the medical team spring into action. They worked swiftly, their movements a blur as they prepared to save the tiny life that had been so carelessly discarded. The weight of the situation pressed heavily on her shoulders, and she felt a surge of determination rising within her. I can't just stand here, she thought. I have to do something. As she stood there, frozen in place yet filled with a restless energy, her mind raced with thoughts of the baby's future. Who had left her there? What kind of life awaited her now? Would she survive? The questions were relentless, each one pulling her deeper into a whirlpool of dread and hope. Stay here, we'll keep you updated, the nurse said gently, her voice a lifeline amidst the chaos. Lily nodded, her heart aching as she watched them work. She felt an unexplainable connection to the baby, a fierce protectiveness that ignited a fire within her. She couldn't help but think that this child, this innocent little girl, deserved a chance, just like everyone else. As the minutes ticked by, Lily found herself pacing anxiously in the waiting area, her heart heavy with uncertainty. She glanced at the clock, each second feeling like an eternity. Please be okay, she whispered to herself, closing her eyes and imagining a brighter future for the baby. In that moment, she realized her life had forever changed. She was no longer just a teenager grappling with high school dramas. She had become a part of a story much larger than herself. A story of survival, hope, and the unbreakable bond between a girl and a baby she had never met but already loved with all her heart. Lily burst through the sliding glass doors of the emergency room, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The sterile smell of antiseptic filled her nostrils, mingling with the palpable tension in the air. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting a harsh glow on the chaotic scene unfolding in front of her. "Help! Someone please!" she shouted, her voice tinged with desperation. The words spilled out of her like a tidal wave, carrying the weight of fear and urgency. The hospital staff turned sharply at her frantic cries. A nurse rushed forward, her eyes wide with alarm. "What's wrong? What happened?" Lily cradled the tiny bundle wrapped in her jacket, her hands trembling. "It's a baby. She was abandoned in a trash bin." The nurse's expression shifted from concern to action as she took the baby from Lily's arms. "We need a pediatric team in here now," she called out, her voice commanding as she hurried toward the triage area. A wave of relief washed over Lily as she watched the nurse, her movements swift and purposeful, take the baby into the back. Just then, Dr. Thomas emerged from the shadows of the emergency room, a seasoned physician with years of experience etched into the lines of his face. His brow furrowed as he assessed the situation, and Lily felt a flicker of hope at the sight of him. "Lily, is it?" he asked, his tone professional, yet laced with an underlying concern. "What happened?" "I found her in a trash bin," Lily explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how long she was there, but she needs help. She was so cold, and I didn't know what else to do." Dr. Thomas's expression hardened as he heard her words. "How could someone do this?" he murmured, more to himself than to Lily. He turned his attention back to her, his voice steady. "I need you to tell me everything you can remember about finding her. Every detail matters." Lily swallowed hard, the memory of the moment flooding back to her. "I was walking home from school when I heard her crying. At first, I thought it was a cat or something, but then I realized it was a baby. I couldn't just leave her there." "Did you see anyone else around? Anyone who might have been with her?" Dr. Thomas pressed, his eyes narrowing as he tried to piece together the scenario. "No, just me. I was alone," she replied, her voice quivering. "I wasn't thinking clearly. I just knew I had to help." As she spoke, a flurry of activity erupted behind Dr. Thomas. Nurses and doctors moved with precision, preparing equipment and shouting orders. The sound of footsteps echoed in the corridor, and Lily felt a sense of nausea rising in her throat. She couldn't shake the image of the baby's fragile form from her mind. Dr. Thomas glanced over his shoulder at the commotion, his expression shifting to one of fierce determination. "We're going to do everything we can," he assured Lily, his voice a steady anchor amidst the chaos. "But I need you to stay calm. You did the right thing by bringing her here." Lily nodded, though her heart was still racing. She felt a strange bond forming with the tiny life she had fought so hard to save, and the thought of losing her sent a shiver down her spine. Moments later, a team of pediatricians rushed into the room, their faces set with grim resolve. They quickly surrounded the incubator, where the baby was now being examined. Lily watched helplessly from the sidelines, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "Get me a blood sample, and let's check her vitals," one of the doctors called, his voice cutting through the noise like a knife. Lily could barely hear the medical jargon. Her mind was focused solely on the tiny form behind the glass. "Is she going to be okay?" she whispered to herself, the words escaping her lips before she could stop them. Dr. Thomas stood beside her, his gaze fixed intently on the team, working to stabilize the baby. "We're doing everything we can, but she's at a critical juncture, and we need to work fast," he said, his tone both reassuring and serious. For what felt like an eternity, Lily stood in the corner, her heart aching as she watched the doctors work. The fluorescent lights hummed above her, the beeping of machines creating an unsettling rhythm that underscored the gravity of the situation. Finally, after what felt like hours, Dr. Thomas turned to Lily, his expression softened slightly. "You've shown incredible bravery today, Lily. Most people would have turned away from such a horrific scene. But you didn't. You took action. I couldn't leave her there," Lily replied, her voice trembling. "She didn't deserve that." Dr. Thomas nodded, his eyes reflecting a mixture of admiration and sadness. "It's a harsh world out there, but it's people like you who bring a glimmer of hope. We need more of that." "Is she going to be okay?" Lily dared to ask, her heart pounding in her chest as she searched his face for answers. "We're working on it," he replied, his tone carefully measured. "She's stable for now, but we need to monitor her closely. There's a long road ahead." Lily felt a weight settle in her chest. "What happens if she doesn't make it?" Dr. Thomas sighed, a deep, weary sound. "We can't think that way, Lily. We have to focus on the present and do everything we can to give her the best chance." Lily nodded, though the fear still gnawed at her insides. She felt a deep connection to the baby, a bond that transcended the brief moments they had shared. She couldn't shake the feeling that this child was now a part of her life, and she would do anything to protect her. As the medical team continued to work diligently, Lily felt an overwhelming urge to help. She wanted to be more than just an observer. She wanted to be involved in the baby's care. "Is there anything I can do?" she asked, her voice rising above the chaos. Dr. Thomas looked at her, a hint of surprise flickering in his eyes. "Your presence here is already a comfort, but you're not a medical professional, Lily. You need to let us do our job." "But I care about her," Lily insisted, her voice rising with emotion. "I can't just stand here and do nothing." He studied her for a moment, recognizing the intensity of her feelings. "I understand," he said finally, "but there are protocols in place. If you want to help, you can wait here and support the staff. Your compassion will make a difference, even if it's not in the way you envision." Lily felt a flicker of hope at his words. She could be a source of encouragement, even if she couldn't physically help. "I can do that," she said, determination igniting within her. As the minutes turned into hours, Lily remained in the waiting area, her eyes glued to the glass walls of the treatment room. Every beep of the machines and every whispered conversation among the doctors felt like a heartbeat in her chest. She was consumed with worry, but also fueled by a fierce hope that had taken root in her heart. Soon, a nurse approached her, a gentle smile illuminating her face. "You've been quite the hero today, haven't you?" she said, her voice soothing. "I just did what anyone would do," Lily replied, her cheeks flushing at the compliment. "No, not everyone would act with such bravery," the nurse insisted. "You saved that baby's life. You should be proud." For the first time since she had found the baby, Lily felt a glimmer of pride in her actions. "Thank you," she said softly, her heart swelling with gratitude. As the hours dragged on, Lily remained steadfast, her heart intertwined with that of the baby. She knew she would do everything in her power to ensure that Hope, as she now thought of the child, had the chance at a future filled with love and possibility. And as she waited, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a journey that would change her life forever. In the sterile, fluorescent-lit waiting area of the hospital, Lily sat on the edge of a plastic chair, her fingers nervously twisting the hem of her jacket. The events of the past few hours played in her mind like a relentless reel, each moment more surreal than the last. The distant beeping of machines and the hurried footsteps of medical staff blended into a background hum, punctuated occasionally by the urgent shouts of doctors and nurses. Just as she tried to collect her swirling thoughts, a nurse approached her, her scrubs a vibrant shade of blue that contrasted sharply with the bleakness of the situation. The nurse's name tag read Sarah, and her demeanor was warm and inviting. "Hey there, sweetheart," Sarah said, kneeling to Lily's level, her voice soft but firm. "I know this is really tough for you. How are you holding up?" Lily looked up, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I can't stop thinking about her. The baby. She was so small and helpless. How could someone just leave her like that?" Sarah nodded, her expression turning serious. "It's heartbreaking, isn't it? Some people don't realize the impact their choices have on others. But you did something incredible by bringing her here. You saved her life." A small flicker of pride ignited in Lily's chest, but it was quickly overshadowed by the weight of guilt and helplessness. "But what if she doesn't make it? I didn't even know her name. I didn't know anything about her." "You named her, didn't you?" Sarah asked, a hint of encouragement in her voice. "I called her Hope," Lily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, "because I want her to have a chance at a better life." "That's a beautiful name," Sarah said, smiling gently. "And you're right, she deserves all the hope in the world. You're showing that hope already by being here for her." Lily felt a surge of gratitude towards the nurse. Sarah's words wrapped around her like a warm blanket, providing a momentary reprieve from her anxiety. "Thank you," she said, her voice steadier now. "I just wish I could do more." "Just being here is a big deal," Sarah replied, her tone reassuring. "Every bit of love and support helps. I can tell you care deeply, and that's what this baby needs right now. People who care. You're not alone in this." Lily smiled faintly, comforted by Sarah's empathy. They sat together for a few moments in silence, the weight of the situation hanging in the air, but somehow feeling lighter with Sarah's presence. However, the tranquility was short-lived. Dr. Thomas strode into the waiting area, his expression a mix of exhaustion and urgency. He spotted Lily and approached her, his brow furrowing as he took in the sight of her pale face and trembling hands. "Lily," he said, his voice firm yet tinged with a hint of compassion. "I need to speak with you." Lily's heart raced as she met his gaze. "Is it about the baby? Is she okay?" Dr. Thomas took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. "We were able to stabilize her, but she's not out of the woods yet. Her condition is serious, and we need to monitor her closely." "Why would someone do this?" Lily blurted out, the frustration spilling from her lips. "How can a mother just abandon her own child?" Dr. Thomas's expression hardened slightly, and he crossed his arms over his chest. "It's a question I've asked myself countless times. The reality is that not everyone is ready or able to be a parent. The world can be a harsh place, and some people make choices out of desperation. It's infuriating. But it's also heartbreaking," Lily countered, feeling a swell of emotion rise within her. "What if this baby had died? What if no one had found her?" "Exactly, Doctor," Thomas replied, his voice rising slightly. "That's the point I want to make, Lily. Parenting isn't just about having a child. It's about responsibility. It's about being there for them, providing for them, protecting them. And those who neglect that responsibility, they inflict pain, not just on their children, but on society as a whole." Lily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. "But what if she's given a chance? What if she can have a good life?" Dr. Thomas studied her for a moment, his expression softening. "You have a kind heart, and I admire that. But you must understand that hope alone isn't enough. Life is complicated, and it's filled with obstacles. You need to think about what it truly means to raise a child. It's a lifelong commitment, and it comes with its own set of challenges." "Are you saying I should just give up on her?" Lily replied, her voice rising in defiance. "She deserves a chance. I want to help her." "I'm not saying that at all," Dr. Thomas said, his tone firm but no longer harsh. "What I'm trying to convey is the weight of the situation. You've shown incredible compassion by saving her, but you must also understand the realities that come with it. It's a heavy burden to bear, and you need to be prepared for the consequences." Lily felt a mix of guilt and defensiveness. "I know it's not easy. I know I'm just a teenager, but I can't just sit back and do nothing." "Doing nothing is not an option," Dr. Thomas agreed, his voice calming. "But you also need to think about what this means for you. Are you ready to take on the responsibility of caring for a child? It's not just about love, it's about stability, resources, and a safe environment. I don't know, Lily admitted, her heart racing. But I can't just walk away from her. She needs someone. And someone will be there for her, Dr. Thomas reassured her. Our priority is to ensure that this baby gets the best care possible. We'll do everything we can to find her a safe and loving home. The conversation hung in the air, heavy with unspoken thoughts and emotions. Lily's heart sank at the reality of Dr. Thomas's words. She felt a surge of anger at the world for being so unfair, for putting a newborn in such a precarious situation. And yet, there was a flicker of determination that ignited within her. I won't give up on her, she said, her voice steady now. I'll be there for her as long as I can. Dr. Thomas regarded her with a mixture of admiration and concern. You have a good heart, Lily. Just remember to take care of yourself in the process. You can't pour from an empty cup. Lily nodded, though she wasn't sure she could take her own advice. As she sat there, surrounded by the chaos of the hospital, she couldn't shake the feeling that Hope's fate was intertwined with her own. And as the hours stretched on, she found herself questioning the very foundation of responsibility, love, and what it truly meant to be a guardian in a world filled with pain and uncertainty. The weight of the conversation lingered in her mind as she watched the hustle of the hospital staff, each person seemingly lost in their own world of urgency and care. Hope was not alone, but the challenges ahead loomed large. As Lily took a deep breath, she braced herself for the journey that lay before her, a journey that would test her resolve, her heart, and everything she believed in. As the days rolled into a week, the sterile scent of antiseptic and the incessant beeping of machines became familiar to Lily. Each day she arrived at the hospital with the same fervent hope in her heart as she clutched the small stuffed bear she had brought for Hope. The little girl was still in the neonatal intensive care unit, her fragile form swathed in blankets, with tubes and monitors surrounding her. Lily had taken to visiting whenever she could, her schoolwork often neglected, her mind anchored to the tiny infant whose life had started with such grim circumstances. Lily leaned over the glass partition, her eyes glued to the incubator where Hope lay, her chest rising and falling slowly. The nurses had told her that the baby was stable now, but the lingering threat of complications loomed over her like a dark cloud. Lily whispered softly, "You're going to be okay, Hope. I'm here." She felt a surge of protectiveness swell within her. It was as if this small child had become a part of her, a tether binding them together in a way she couldn't quite articulate. One afternoon, she found Sarah, the compassionate nurse she had befriended, checking the baby's vitals. "How's she doing today?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might disturb the delicate peace of the room. "Better," Sarah replied, a warm smile lighting her face. "She's responding well to the treatments, and we're hopeful she'll be off the ventilator soon. You've been such a wonderful presence for her, Lily. It makes a difference." Lily felt her cheeks flush with gratitude. "I just want her to be okay. I can't stop thinking about what happened to her. It's just not fair." "Life's not fair, kiddo," Sarah said gently, resting a hand on Lily's shoulder. "But you're here now, and that's what matters. You're giving her love, and love is powerful." With every visit, Lily felt her resolve deepen. She had taken to reading to Hope from her favorite books, determined to fill the sterile environment with warmth and affection. Each time she read a story, she imagined a brighter future for the child, one where laughter and joy replaced the pain of abandonment. It was on one of these afternoons that Dr. Thomas entered the room, his face a mixture of weariness and resolve. He had grown accustomed to seeing Lily there, her dedication both admirable and perplexing. "You're here again," he remarked, his tone neutral but softened by an underlying respect. "I can't help it," she replied, a hint of defiance in her voice. She needs someone to care about her. "Caring is important, but it's not enough to fix the world's problems," he countered, crossing his arms. "I've seen too many children fall through the cracks, and it's hard not to feel disillusioned." Lily turned to him, her brow furrowing. "But what if we can make a difference? What if Hope gets a chance because we care? I don't want to give up on her." Dr. Thomas sighed, his steely demeanor cracking just slightly as he looked at the baby. "You're right. Every child deserves a chance. But the reality is that not every situation has a happy ending." He paused, his voice lowering. I lost my son 2 years ago. He was sick, and there was nothing we could do. I know how fragile life is, Lily. I just don't want you to get too attached." "I can't help it," she said fiercely, her eyes flashing. "She's not just a patient to me. She's a person. She deserves love and a family." His expression softened further, and he stepped closer to the incubator, peering down at Hope. "You remind me of who I used to be, the idealistic doctor who thought he could save everyone. I admired that about myself once, but life has a way of wearing you down." "Then, let's not let it wear us down," Lily urged, stepping forward. "We can be a part of her story, Doctor. Thomas, we can give her hope." He regarded her for a long moment, the tumult of emotions flickering across his face. "Hope," he echoed almost to himself. "You've named her, haven't you? That's a beautiful choice." "Yes," she replied, a smile breaking through her earlier intensity. "I thought it suited her. It gives me something to hold on to." Dr. Thomas nodded slowly, seemingly weighing her words. "Hope is a powerful thing, but remember, it can also lead to disappointment." "Maybe, but I'd rather feel hopeful than give up," she insisted, her voice steady. As the days continued to wane, Lily found herself increasingly drawn into the hospital's rhythm. Each time she returned, she noticed Dr. Thomas watching her more closely, as if he were trying to decipher the depth of her compassion. It was a fragile bond that formed between them, one built on shared responsibility and the unspoken understanding of the stakes at hand. One evening, as sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, Lily sat next to Hope's incubator, her hand gently resting on the cool glass. She watched the baby's tiny fingers twitch, feeling an unexplainable connection that transcended the circumstances of their meeting. Suddenly, Dr. Thomas entered the room, his expression more somber than usual. "Lily," he said, his voice low, "can we talk for a moment?" She turned, her heart racing as she sensed the gravity in his tone. "Of course. Is something wrong with Hope?" "No, she's stable for now," he reassured her, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of worry. "But we need to discuss her future." "What do you mean?" Lily asked, her brow knitting together. "Given the circumstances of her abandonment, we will have to involve Child Protective Services soon. They will want to assess her situation and determine the best course of action for her care." Lily's heart sank. "But what if someone decides to put her in a foster home, or worse?" "That's a possibility, Doctor," Thomas admitted. "But we can advocate for her. You have a voice in this, and I'll support whatever you want to do. You've shown incredible dedication." Lily swallowed hard. "I want her to have a family. I want to be there for her. I can help raise her." Dr. Thomas studied her intently, a mixture of admiration and concern in his gaze. "You're still young, Lily. This is a huge responsibility." "I know," she said, her voice firm. "But she deserves a chance, Doctor. Thomas, I can't let her go without fighting for her." Just then, the door swung open and a woman stepped into the room. Her hair was disheveled and her eyes darted around as if searching for something. Lily's heart raced as she recognized the expression on the woman's face, desperation mingled with fear. "Where is she?" the woman demanded, her voice shaky yet authoritative. "Where's my baby?" Lily's stomach twisted, the air thickening around them. Dr. Thomas instinctively moved in front of Lily, his demeanor shifting to protective. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice steady and commanding. "I'm her mother," the woman replied, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I need to see my baby." Lily felt her heart pounding in her chest. The world around her began to spin, and for a moment, she was frozen in place, torn between the fierce love she felt for Hope and the turmoil that threatened to unravel everything she had fought for. Lily stood in the hospital corridor, her heart racing as the door swung open. The woman who entered was disheveled, her eyes wide with panic. Emily, the baby's mother, had arrived, and the atmosphere shifted immediately. Dr. Thomas, flanked by nurses, exchanged worried glances. They could sense the potential chaos brewing in the air. "Where is she? Where's my baby?" Emily's voice trembled, her breath hitching as she scanned the room, desperate for a glimpse of the child she had abandoned. "Ma'am, please calm down," Dr. Thomas said firmly, stepping forward to block her path. "We need to ask you some questions first." Emily's expression shifted from frantic to defiant. "I don't care about your questions. I just want to see my daughter." She raised her hands, fingers trembling as if trying to reach out for something intangible. I didn't mean to. Ma'am, a nurse interjected, her tone gentle yet authoritative. We need to ensure your safety and that of the baby. You're in no condition to see her right now. Lily watched the scene unfold, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt a mix of empathy and anger towards the woman before her. How could she demand to see hope after abandoning her? Did Emily even understand the gravity of her actions? Why did you leave her? Lily blurted out, stepping closer, her voice steady despite the turmoil within her. How could you just throw her away like that? Emily turned her gaze towards Lily, a flicker of recognition crossing her face. You're the girl who found her, she stammered, her voice softening for a brief moment before the desperation returned. I didn't want to. I couldn't. Then why did you? Lily pressed, her frustration boiling over. What could possibly make you think that was okay? Tears streamed down Emily's face as she struggled to find the words. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I thought she'd be better off without me. I'm not fit to be a mother. She collapsed against the wall, her body shaking with sobs. I'm nothing but a mess. Dr. Thomas stepped in, sensing the emotional volatility of the situation. Emily, we understand that you're upset, but we need to talk about the circumstances surrounding the baby's abandonment. Your actions have consequences. Lily felt a pang of sorrow for Emily, despite the anger that still coursed through her veins. The woman was clearly in pain, but the question remained, how could she leave her child behind? You think it's better for her to be alone in a trash bin than with you? Lily demanded, her voice rising. You had a choice. Emily looked up, her eyes wide with anguish. I thought I was saving her from a life of suffering. I'm addicted. I can't take care of myself, let alone a baby. You don't know what it's like. Her voice wavered, filled with raw emotion. I was desperate. I thought what? Lily interrupted, her frustration boiling over. That leaving her to die was the answer? I didn't want to hurt her, Emily cried, her voice raw. I thought it would be better for her. I thought someone would find her and take care of her. But you didn't think to call for help? Lily's voice softened, the anger giving way to compassion. You didn't think to reach out? Emily's shoulders slumped, the fight leaving her. I was afraid. I was so afraid. I didn't know who to turn to. I thought I could handle it on my own, but I was wrong. Dr. Thomas stepped closer, his expression shifting from one of authority to understanding. Emily, we want to help you, but you need to be honest with us. What kind of support do you have? Are you in treatment? Emily's face fell, her defenses crumbling. I've tried so many times. I wanted to get clean, but it's hard. I keep falling back into the same patterns. Then let us help you, doctor, Thomas urged, his voice steady. But first, you need to understand that your choices have consequences, not just for you, but for your daughter as well. The tension in the room was palpable as Lily watched Emily struggle with her emotions. She could see the pain etched on the woman's face, the turmoil that had driven her to such a desperate act. Yet, anger still simmered within Lily. You can't just walk in here and expect everything to be okay, she said, her voice firm. You need to take responsibility for what you did. Emily looked at Lily, her eyes filled with a mixture of shame and longing. I know, she whispered, I know I messed up, but I love her. I do. I don't know how to be the mother she deserves. Dr. Thomas placed a hand on Emily's shoulder, his grip firm, yet compassionate. The first step is admitting that you need help. We can find a way to support you, but it has to start with you being willing to change. Lily stepped back, feeling a wave of conflicting emotions wash over her. The woman before her was a mother, flawed and broken, yet filled with a love she hadn't been able to express in a healthy way. If you really love her, Lily said quietly, then you need to fight for her. Emily nodded slowly, tears spilling down her cheeks. I want to fight for her. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You have to be, Lily urged. For her sake, you have to be strong. Just then, the tension in the room escalated as Emily's expression shifted from despair to determination. I'll do whatever it takes, she declared, her voice rising in intensity. I'll fight. I'll prove that I can be a good mother. Dr. Thomas exchanged a wary glance with the nurses, sensing the shift in Emily's demeanor. We want to support you, but you need to understand that it won't be easy. I don't care. I'll do it. Emily's voice echoed through the corridor, her desperation morphing into fierce resolve. "I can't lose her again!" Instinctively, Dr. Thomas stepped in front of Lily, his protective instincts kicking in as he assessed Emily's sudden volatility. "Emily, we're not here to take her away from you. We just need to ensure everyone's safety." The room fell silent, tension hanging thick in the air. Emily's breathing became erratic as she wrestled with her emotions. "I just want to see her," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "Please." Lily watched the exchange, her heart aching for both women. She could see the battle within Emily, a woman grappling with her past while yearning for a future with her child. "What if we work together?" Lily suggested softly, taking a step forward. "You can show them you're serious about getting help, and then maybe you can see hope." Emily's eyes widened, a flicker of hope igniting. "You'd really help me?" "I want to help," Lily replied, her voice steady. "But it's going to take time, and you have to be honest with yourself. No more lies." Emily nodded, the weight of her choices heavy on her shoulders. "I'll do it. I'll be honest." Dr. Thomas watched the exchange with a mixture of skepticism and hope. "If you're serious, we can set up a plan, but you need to follow through. No more excuses." Emily took a deep breath, her resolve firming. "I will. I promise." As the atmosphere began to shift, a cautious optimism filled the room. Lily felt a glimmer of hope stirring within her, believing that perhaps, just perhaps, both Emily and Hope could find a way forward. But as the reality of the situation settled in, she knew that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges. The stakes were high, and they were all bound together by a fragile thread of hope that could either break or strengthen as they faced the tumultuous path ahead. Lily stood frozen in the hospital corridor, her heart racing in the aftermath of the confrontation with Emily. The emotional weight of the encounter hung heavily in the air, as if time itself had paused. She felt a chill run down her spine, her breath hitching as reality began to settle in. Emily had claimed to be Hope's mother, yet her frantic demeanor and desperate pleas only fueled Lily's confusion. But it was the charm glinting on Emily's neck that struck her most profoundly. It was identical to the tiny silver charm tied around Hope's wrist, a delicate link that suggested a deeper connection between the two women than mere chance. "Is everything okay?" Sarah, the compassionate nurse who had been by her side, asked gently, her voice breaking through Lily's spiraling thoughts. She stepped closer, concern etched across her face. "You look pale." Lily blinked rapidly, forcing herself to focus on Sarah's warm presence. I saw the charm," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's the same as Hope's." The realization felt like a riptide, pulling her under, dragging her down into a sea of uncertainty. "Wait, what?" Sarah's eyes widened as she processed Lily's words. "Are you sure? That's significant. It could mean something." There was an urgency in Sarah's tone that mirrored Lily's own rising panic. "I can't shake the feeling that there's more to this," Lily said, her hands trembling slightly. "What if Emily is telling the truth? What if she really is Hope's mother?" The thought sent a wave of nausea coursing through her. Hope had become so important to her, almost like a daughter, and the idea of her being tied to someone like Emily felt like a betrayal. Before Sarah could respond, Dr. Thomas appeared at the end of the corridor, his brow furrowed in thought. He had witnessed the confrontation from a distance, and his expression was a mix of concern and contemplation. "Lily," he called, his voice steady but laced with an urgency that made her heart skip. "Can we talk?" Lily nodded, her throat tightening as they moved to a quieter section of the hospital, away from prying ears and the chaos of the emergency room. She could feel Sarah's gaze on her, filled with encouragement and worry. "Tell me what's going through your mind," Dr. Thomas said, his voice softer now, a stark contrast to the tension that had filled the air moments before. Lily took a deep breath, battling the whirlwind of emotions. "Did you see the charm?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "It's identical to the one on Hope." "What does that mean, Doctor?" "Thomas?" He hesitated, his expression darkening. "It means we need to proceed with caution. If Emily is indeed connected to the baby, we must consider the implications. We can't assume she is a safe presence in Hope's life." "But what if she's not dangerous?" Lily argued, her eyes wide with desperation. "What if she's just lost, just like I was when I found Hope?" Her voice cracked, revealing the vulnerability she had tried to suppress. Dr. Thomas ran a hand through his hair, his sigh heavy with the weight of responsibility. "Lily, emotions can cloud our judgment. We need to be rational about this. The hospital has protocols for situations like these. We can't let personal feelings dictate our actions." "But Hope is not just a case to me," Lily exclaimed, her voice rising. "She's a living being, and I can't just stand by while someone who might be her mother is taken away. We owe it to her to find out the truth." Dr. Thomas studied her intently, and for a moment, Lily thought she saw a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "You're right," he finally said, his tone shifting. "We owe it to her. But we also owe it to ourselves to stay safe. If Emily is unstable, she could pose a threat." Lily nodded, feeling a mix of frustration and fear. "I just need to know more about her. I need to understand if she truly abandoned Hope or if there's something deeper at play here." Just then, the hospital's alarm system blared to life, cutting through their conversation like a knife. Red lights flashed, and the calm atmosphere erupted into chaos. Nurses and doctors rushed down the corridors, their faces a mixture of urgency and fear. "Code Red! Code Red!" echoed through the halls, sending a shiver down Lily's spine. Dr. Thomas's expression shifted from concern to focused determination. "Stay here, Lily," he commanded, his voice firm. "I need to assess the situation." Without waiting for her response, he strode away, disappearing into the chaos. Lily's heart raced as she watched him go. The urgency of the moment felt surreal. She searched the faces around her for answers, but all she saw was confusion and panic. The alarm blared incessantly, a haunting reminder that danger was lurking just beyond the sterile walls of the hospital. "What's happening?" she asked a passing nurse, grabbing her arm. "Not sure yet," the nurse replied, her expression frantic. "We think someone may have breached security. We're trying to lock down the building." Fear coursed through Lily's veins as she thought of Hope, alone in her hospital room. She couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Without thinking, she broke away from the nurse and dashed down the corridor, her mind set on reaching the neonatal unit. "Lily, wait!" Sarah called, but Lily didn't stop. The sound of her own heartbeat drowned out everything else as she raced through the winding halls. As she approached the neonatal unit, her breath quickened. The door was slightly ajar, and she could hear muffled voices inside. Pushing the door open, she stepped inside, her heart lodged in her throat. The sight that met her was shocking. Several medical staff members were gathered around Hope's incubator, their expressions tense and focused. A nurse turned to her, eyes wide with alarm. "You shouldn't be here." "Is Hope okay?" Lily asked desperately, stepping closer. Before anyone could respond, the lights flickered ominously, and the emergency alarms continued to echo through the building. Suddenly, a loud crash reverberated from somewhere down the corridor, and the nurses exchanged anxious glances. "Stay back!" one of the nurses shouted as they moved to secure the area around Hope. Lily felt a wave of panic wash over her as the reality of the situation settled in. She had to protect Hope at all costs. Just then, Dr. Thomas rushed back into the room, his face pale. "We need to evacuate the neonatal unit," he said urgently. "There's a potential threat in the building, and we can't risk anyone getting hurt." Lily's heart sank. "But what about Hope? She's not ready to be moved." "I know, but we have no choice," Dr. Thomas replied, his voice firm yet empathetic. "We'll do everything we can to keep her safe, I promise." In that moment, as chaos swirled around her, Lily grasped onto one unwavering thought. She had to stay strong for Hope. Whatever the truth about Emily and the charm, whatever danger lurked in the hospital, she would fight to protect the baby she had come to love so deeply. As the alarm continued to ring out, echoing through the halls like a siren of impending doom, Lily steeled herself for whatever was to come, ready to face the unknown that awaited them. To be continued.